US President Donald Trump's approval rating has dropped significantly after 7 months in the office. The Economist YouGov survey found that 40% of Americans fully or partially approve of Trump's performance, while 56% disapprove. Support for the president remains sharply divided along party lines, with most Democrats strongly critical of his actions and most Republicans backing him. Approval is highest among older Americans. 48% of those aged 65 and over say they support Trump. Among younger adults, only 29% approve. Since the beginning of his presidency, Trump's approval rating has fallen by 7 points, down for 47%. The finding comes as Republican strategist Karl Rove warned that Trump's failure to secure a peace agreement to end Russia's war in Ukraine could ultimately sink his presidency. The Pentagon has been blocking Ukraine from using long-range American weapons to strike inside Russia for several months, according to a report in the Wall Street Journal. U.S. officials told to the paper that a special high-level approval process at the Department of Defense has prevented Ukraine from launching ATACMS missile at Russian targets since late spring. At least once, Kyiv tried to use the system against a target in Russia but was denied permission. The restriction also applies to British and French Storm Shadow cruise missiles because their targeting relies on U.S. support. Only Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth can personally authorize such strikes. The newspaper notes this policy effectively canceled the Biden administration's earlier decision to allow Ukraine to strike Russian territory. President Donald Trump said this week that wars cannot be won by defensive actions alone, but his comments did not lead to any change in policy. So Ukraine continues its own strikes with drones. This week, they hit 2 Russian oil refineries and 2 pumping stations, including one in the Rostov region that has been burning for more than 60 hours. Meanwhile, Ukraine has unveiled its own long-range cruise missile, the FP-5 Flamingo. President Zelensky said the missile, developed by Ukrainian defense startup Firepoint, can strike targets up to 3,000 kilometers inside Russia. Mass production could begin early next year. President Donald Trump is signaling a step back from his push to secure a Ukraine peace deal after weeks of stalled diplomacy and no signs of progress from Moscow. Speaking in the Oval Office, Trump said he would decide in 2 weeks how to proceed, whether to impose massive sanctions or tariffs on Russia or to let Ukraine fight on its own. The remarks mark a change in tone from recent weeks when Trump projected confidence he could arrange a meeting between Volodymyr Zelensky and dictator Putin. Despite a summit in Alaska and talks in Washington, the Kremlin continues to reject a ceasefire and downplays any change of direct negotiations with the Ukrainian president. Security guarantees for Ukraine will be ready within days. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that work on security guarantees for Ukraine is nearing completion, and the framework will be ready next week. Speaking after a phone call with Dutch Prime Minister Schoof, with whom he is also preparing an in-person meeting, Zelensky stressed that Ukrainian, US and European teams are finalizing the architecture of the guarantees. He added that Russia shows no real intention of peace and continues to strike Ukrainian cities. Now there is a real chance to end this war, and Ukraine is ready for constructive steps that could bring true peace, Ukrainian president said. Ukraine celebrates its Independence Day, 34 years since the country declared sovereignty and broke away from the Soviet Union. The anniversary comes in the middle of a brutal war, giving the date even deeper meaning. To mark the day, U.S. Special Envoy Keith Kellogg arrived in Kyiv. He will join official ceremonies, take part in a prayer breakfast, and meet Ukrainian leaders to discuss new security guarantees being shaped together with the United States and Europe. This holiday is not just about history. It is about Ukraine's future, the fight for freedom, and the hope for peace. And President Volodymyr Zelensky put in his own words.
Ukraine believes it can achieve this, peace across its entire land. Ukraine is capable of it, because Ukraine has character, a rock-like endurance, a gaze that never wavers, hands scorched by fire and time, yet strong, hands that hold the shield and defend their own.
Thank you for your attention. For more content, please subscribe.